Have you ever seen this trick? How about this one? Or maybe you've seen this one. What about all of these tricks at the same time? Now, if you've never seen these tricks, it's because you've never watched JJ902. Some of you may recognize the name JJ902 from the famous choke at GDQ 2011. You know, the incident where that runner said he could only play on his own cartridge? Okay. Now, it wasn't that unusual for a player to feel superstitious about their gear, just like Kevin Garnett in the movie Uncut Gems, who feels superstitious about a black opal because it brings him luck. But to this extent, why was the best player in the world failing trick after trick after trick?
I'm just not feeling good today. I don't know.
This is the incident that spurred a community-wide investigation, led to the creation of the Speedrun Fair Play Committee, and would ultimately uncover one of the deepest yet subtle advantages that a player could use to become number one. But first we gotta go back to even understand why he was invited to GDQ to begin with. It all began in 2009 when JJ902 gets home from school one day and starts his very first Super Mario 64 stream on Justin TV.
He looks so funny.
He wanted to try his hands at 100%ing the game, something he had never done when he was younger.
I've actually never done this before, not even when I was younger.
Someone in his chat recognized that he seemed like a natural at the game and told him about speedrunning. This unlocked a brand new world for JJ. One of his favorite games growing up had led him into a rabbit hole where people just like him would spend months mastering the game. A kind, welcoming community that would happily teach new players everything they needed to know. Now, his first speedrun was just okay. He didn't exactly seem confident moving the character, but he still managed to pull off a couple of neat tricks.
I got it. I got the trick.
Now, interestingly enough, at one point, he spent a little bit of time near the pillar at JRB, what the community would later refer to as a frame walk. But because he didn't successfully pull off the trick, everyone just assumed it was some kind of error and didn't really think much of it. As the years would progress, he would begin to tighten up his general movement, improve his consistency, and actually himself become a mentor for new people in the community looking to learn new tricks. Kind of a beautiful relationship. Everyone welcomed him with open arms. He continued to grind and practice until he was one of the players that could teach everyone else. And when it came to JJ902 and his new discoveries, there were many. One of his signature moves would later be called the JJ Triple, a trick in Tall Mountain, which quickly gathered interest amongst the top players at the time. How do you think he explained this trick? I'm not joking. He said you would want to hold the degrees X125, Y-45 on your joystick, and that if you were holding that position, it would work automatically, proving that he looked at the game entirely different. This wasn't advice that other players could really wrap their head around. He was just that good. And of course there's the JJ slide kick, which he would use at the beginning of many stages for a unique acceleration that most people couldn't replicate. In fact, most people to this day still use long jump. And he'd even smooth out that frame walk trick to skip the cannon in Jolly Roger Bay, which, thinking back, it's crazy that he attempted this in his first run ever. People just kinda got used to the feeling of not being able to do what he was doing in his game. He would go well out of his way to try and train people and teach them and create tutorials.
So I got a message about the JJ Triple, and I guess people are calling it that now.
But no matter how many people in the community would give it a go, it seemed to be that a lot of these tricks were just JJ902 exclusives. Which you might be thinking, that's pretty suspicious, except he was making revelation after revelation as well. He was teaching the community tricks they had never seen before, so it was pretty hard to scrutinize the ones that otherwise seemed impossible. Okay, so let's get into some of these impossible tricks. The Tall Mountain Upwarp, a freak occurrence that immediately let him skip the beginning of the stage. This one actually garnered a lot of media attention, with one of the leading theories being that someone in his house must have turned on a microwave as soon as the stage loaded. There was the clip in Peach's slide, which he said wasn't worth it after demonstrating just how powerful it was. And that one time he claimed to be able to skip the intro of the game. and that he would only bust it out one day when he was ready. While most of these impossible tricks kind of flew under the radar, his claim to be able to beat the game without the second key was just a little bit too much. And after going viral among several speedrunning communities, being showcased in a popular YouTuber's video,
now, take a picture of that mother.
He was offered an all-expenses-paid vacation experience to go to GDQ in 2011 and ensure his title as one of the greatest runners in the world. However, despite such a life-changing opportunity, he declined. It was already unusual for GDQ to offer such a generous opportunity, but after his refusal to showcase the trick live, they even offered him money. Combined with pressure from his friends, the community, and even his parents, he could not say no. He would be going to sunny Wisconsin to speedrun Super Mario 64, no key, any percent, creating the guarantee that as long as he finished the run, it would be a world record, a world's first, and the excitement could not be more palpable. Fast forward a couple of months, and JJ902 is scheduled to run at the absolute primetime slot, Thursday at 6 p.m. This was especially important because GDQ would no longer need to share the room with the Wisconsin EDM Festival, giving JJ902 the focus he would need during his run. Now to everyone at home, things seemed perfectly fine, but word was getting around the venue that JJ was acting a bit unusual. People were saying that in the hotel room he would play with extreme confidence and skill at one time, but then seemed like he was a complete noob at others. Don't get me wrong though, he was perfectly adequate at the majority of the game. There's no questioning that this player was good, but he wasn't going for any of the tricks that made him stand out from the rest of the crowd. He'd go from being the life of the party in his room to almost seeming afraid at the venue to really play the game at all. Now what I'm about to tell you has never been officially confirmed, but the story as we know it is that 3 to 4 hours before his run, JJ requested if he could swap the cartridge for the one that he used as a kid. He told the staff member a story about how it would mean the world to him and that he would frame the cartridge afterwards on the wall. Really sold him a sob story. The reason this is important is because up to this time, JJ902 never told anyone at the venue that due to his pay arrangement with GDQ and the overlap with Guinness World Records, JJ902 was only allowed to play with a championship edition of Mario 64, which is one of the rarer ones provided by Guinness. This was unusual, as the majority of people who come to participate in these marathons bring their own controllers, games, you name it, just like Kevin Garnett in the movie Uncut Gems, who feels superstitious about a black opal because it brings him luck. But this one had to be by the book. Nonetheless, supposedly he was able to convince GDQ staff to make a swap of the cartridge, played it off as a harmless and sentimental thing, and was primed to begin his run using an unofficial copy of the game. Almost immediately, everyone noticed that JJ seemed more comfortable and relaxed. He was easier to approach, easier to engage with, and carried himself in a way that inspired others. His closest friends and fellow runners would gather around the couch to watch history in the making. JJ begins his run, mashes the start button to skip into the intro, and you see his demeanor change entirely. He looks like he's seen a ghost, but shakes it off and starts talking about the trick he discovered.
First time we'll ever see this run. You don't even need to kill Bowser.
The intro ends, he goes through the text, and he nails the bridge text skip. You see, there's normally a Lakitu on the bridge that talks to Mario and gives him a bit of an introduction to the game. By landing on the very edge of the bridge, JJ902 was able to completely skip the important message that was waiting for him, and with everything else out of the way, he begins going for the key to skip. Now this is where things get interesting. You see, this is actually a trick that no one has seen live, partly due to its complexity, but also because JJ enjoyed his position as the only one who knew the secrets of the game. But luckily we had seen it in his concept runs. While the channel no longer exists, it can still be seen on the Wayback Machine called Uncommentated JJ. He would often upload unbelievable concepts and explain how they worked through text. It wouldn't be that uncommon for people to see these videos, try it out, and then give up after a while because they weren't quite able to handle the precision JJ had. But this trick was different. On his YouTube channel, all we saw was the end result a few months ago. So the excitement from the crowd was palpable. The video didn't explain anything, but showed him going from the lobby door, walking over to Toad, and storing both an angle and interaction value. For For those of you familiar with Ocarina of Time speedruns, you'll have seen something similar in the SRM glitch, where by standing in front of a chest you can store Link's interact value, and then keeping that value so that you can activate the stored data at a later point in the game, which he then begins to do. He looks and sounds nervous as he mutters through his explanation. It's almost as if he's bipolar.
I don't know what it is. I just go from manic to depressed on a dime.
And then he approaches a door which he claims is meant to open. It doesn't open at all. Now, do you remember when I said it seemed like he saw a ghost? The ghost he saw was the Championship Edition of Super Mario 64, provided by Guinness, sitting atop his Nintendo 64. Whatever trick he may have had up his sleeve seemed to no longer be on the table, and yet his attitude seemed more confident. Don't get me wrong, because at first he seems very shocked and surprised, but then he smiles and nods his head and says, yeah, I don't know why that happens sometimes. And then something kind of magical happens. We see him growing more confident, speaking more loudly, going more and more into detail. Those who had their doubts originally actually started to believe. He's telling stories about how he found the trick, and everyone is absolutely enthralled. He's the life of the party. Except on the TV screen, he fails the trick again, and again, and again. His ability to work a crowd was nothing short of magical. Each failed attempt would be met with applause and excitement because everyone was sure more and more that the next attempt was going to be the successful one. Everyone was stoked. But wait, GDQ staff wasn't happy, Twitch staff wasn't happy, and you better believe Guinness staff wasn't happy either. You see, we're 20 minutes into a 10-minute estimate speedrun, and nothing has happened. And while the vibes may have been good, something entirely different was brewing online. Controversy and disbelief amongst the Mario 64 community was full speed ahead. The Skype groups were all posting memes and screen recording of JJ failing, pointing out things that he said that weren't accurate, and people on Twitter and Reddit were going crazy. They were asking, yo, what the f is wrong with JJ? And why does he keep saying, let that sink in?
Oof, let that sink in. Oof, let that sink in. Let that sink in.
But it wasn't just the viewers of the community. You see, many prominent members of the community were straight up declaring their skepticism with no delay. But it would be quite some time before JJ902 realized any of this was going on, and that there was a team back home assembling to dissect all of his videos, live streams, and claims. Now let's get back to the GDQ run. Despite failing to do the key 2 skip over and over again, he remains confident. He seems relaxed, he's cracking jokes, and everyone is having a great time. Minute 25 strikes, and you hear from the announcer's desk.
Hey guys, it looks like we might have to cut this one short.
The developer of Mojang was scheduled to participate in the Minecraft beta speedrun commentary.
Do you think he'd ever sell Minecraft?
No, absolutely not.
But JJ says, wait, give me just one more try. I swear this is it.
I can do it. You just gotta let me try.
And surprisingly enough, the staff allows him one final try.
Yay!
He stores his angle at the toad. He sets his interaction flag, and he begins moving his way back to the door. Everyone is on the edge of their seats. And then Mario began to slide out of his angle and instead interact with the door as if it were the Toad dialogue. JJ902 quickly cleared the dialogue, overlapping the 2 interactions, and Mario walked right on in. Everyone went crazy. For the first time ever, during a live event, JJ902 was able to— Nah, I'm just kidding. But see, that's what was supposed to happen, as shown in the video he uploaded. What really happened was another failed attempt, and they begin wrapping up. You see, from the perspective of JJ902, everything has gone perfectly fine. Maybe he didn't get the trick he wanted to, and maybe he didn't set the Guinness World Record. But to him, this is about as good as everything could go. Back home, the community was abuzz. If you tuned into any Mario 64 livestream, you'd see clear as day both people defending JJ902, saying that he was just nervous, unable to perform in front of a crowd, and many other people relentlessly dragging him, and saying this was complete proof that he had been living a lie. But deeper than that, 4 of the most technical minds came together to create a task force dedicated to dissecting the JJ902 archive. This team consisted of Dreamkiller 5, Jace the Wallet Base, Dildo 2012, and High on Sin 24/7. While they didn't create this task force for notoriety, they would later largely be known as the Bully Hunters. They kept their efforts a secret as the weeks would go by, and during this time, JJ902 was mostly inactive. You see, he would still occasionally play the game and run a live stream of attempts, but it became pretty clear just how much people coming in and asking him what went wrong that day would really bother him. In fact, it bothered him so much that on November 19th, 2011, he uploaded a video titled, "I'm Taking a Break," in which he talked about what went wrong that day and admitted to everyone that he intentionally didn't do the trick at GDQ because it would, quote, ruin the hobby of speedrunning forever.
Sorry, my dog's barking. This would literally ruin my speedrunning hobby forever.
Seriously? Ruin the hobby of speedrunning forever? He was ridiculed for saying this, and it upset almost everyone. There were large groups of people who didn't care about the run and just wanted to see JJ doing what he did best. There were people who believed that the trick never existed and would celebrate him leaving the scene. But you know who this upset the most? The Bully Hunters. After several months of working in the background, they would announce their beliefs that JJ902 was a fraud, that many of the tricks published were strictly impossible, and declared that for these tricks to have ever been possible, he'd had to have been playing on a modified version of the game. Which, keep in mind, almost nobody but Guinness and GDQ staff were aware that he was required to use a championship copy of Mario 64. The biggest piece of data that they would point to came from a manual manipulation of memory in Tick-Tock Clock. By changing a single value, Mario's position would cause him to teleport all the way to the top of the stage. This is very easy to replicate with a modified version of the game, but JJ902 had a video of him doing this and explained it as a particle leap, and said it was only inconsistent because Mario's degree had to be exactly between 85 and 87. This was known as angle 86. A degree that overlapped with a rounding discrepancy which often confused the game's directional instructions, putting Mario in a random location. Even JJ902 wasn't sure why it didn't work sometimes, just that he knew why it did work sometimes. Sounds plausible, right? Well, even as I sit here typing it, it sounds real to me. But High on Sin 24/7 insisted that this was the result of a manipulated code variable. In his video titled Proof JJ902 Fakes His Footage, which by the way amassed over 1.1 million views in less than a week before being taken down from a DMCA request on the basis that it contained no factual evidence and was only meant to assassinate my character, and when High on Sin 24/7 accidentally stumbled upon the exact value to change to have the exact result JJ902 had, people started looking at things a bit differently. High on Sin demonstrated this discrepancy and even said, if anyone can prove me wrong, anyone at all, I'll pay them $1,000. This unfortunately never happened. But you can still find old videos from many years ago of people trying to replicate this glitch and failing. Now what was JJ's response to all of this? Nothing. In 2011, gaming news and scandals like this were rare, but this was big enough to land and be published by Kotaku, pushing the controversy to the larger online communities. Because of the Bully Hunters gaining so much attention, this pointed out a noticeable gap in the way the speedrun communities validated claims, which would then lead to the creation of the Speedrun Fair Play Committee. The Speedrun Fair Play Committee was founded by some guy named Felix Schellberg, and they consisted of technical experts who could analyze claims submitted to them from various gaming communities. These technical experts consisted of, never mind, they're anonymous experts. And while they stated in their policies that it's not a story until we've heard both sides, JJ's silence was starting to echo certainty amongst the doubters. And it would seem like the story concludes there, with no one ever getting an answer, and a general consensus that he was a guy highly skilled at the game who couldn't resist lying and cheating for fame. But what if he was never cheating? One day, small Twitch streamer Funny Roblox 234 is streaming Super Mario 64. This guy was not a speedrunner. He wasn't doing any speedrun tricks, and he didn't have 0 stars, he had 11 of them. Now watch. He stores his angle at the toad, accidentally, just by talking to him. He unintentionally stores an interaction value. And then he literally spams buttons and backflips across the lobby while reading chat, all before pressing A to jump away from the door, and this happens. What? Mario slides out of his angle in front of the door and interacts with the door as if it was the Toad's dialogue. He then enters the upstairs area. And Funny Roblox doesn't even realize he just created history. In fact, if not for one of the viewers clipping this and posting it online asking, "Has anyone ever seen this before? WTF is going on?" maybe we never even would have known about this. Clip goes semi-viral and the race is on. The tools available for studying the game are much better than they were in 2011, and the smartest minds from the community were on the case, and they would definitely uncover the truth behind these deeper game mechanics. Except for the first time in nearly 13 years, JJ902 has uploaded a video. The title of the video? The Hold L Glitch. JJ902 starts the video greeting everyone, wishing them well, and apologizing for never speaking up sooner. He explains that he saw the video making the rounds of funny Roblox entering the door, and decided now was the time to tell the truth. In 2011, while experimenting and manipulating game code, he realized that only a single flag determined whether or not the door could be opened, and that it was likely a manipulatable variable. He admits that he didn't fail to do the trick on purpose at GDQ, but rather that they had him playing on a Championship Edition cartridge. This made sense to almost everyone, as many glitches in the game do not work on the later versions. So why didn't JJ902 want to admit this back in the day? He then goes on to explain that while he wasn't lying about this, he did have a lot of unfair advantages. He explained that on his version of the game, Mario's acceleration was higher, his jump height could be influenced by the D-pad, and if he told people that he was forced to use another cartridge, people would dig deeper and find out the truth. And that it would be easier to be ridiculed online than it would have been to give Guinness back the money they paid him. He then drops the bomb that has changed all of Mario 64 speedrunning, even to this day. The missing piece of the puzzle. The Hold L Glitch. Similar to the Hold R glitch in Ocarina of Time, the door is coded to check if the byte at Mario's instance is storing 0x0c, which represents the flag for the key. When holding L, instead of the door performing the check once, the door then instead tries to perform this check on every frame. And as Mario slides away from the exact angle, Toad is moved to angle 86 during one of the frames the game checks for 0x0c, and with only one frame needing to be legitimate, Mario is allowed to enter the door. JJ intentionally never held L at GDQ, and never told the community about the power of delaying interactions to its fullest. And abruptly, out of nowhere, he ends the video by saying, "Well, fuck you guys.
I'm a lawyer anyways now. Let that sink in."
And we haven't really heard from him since.